Right, I think we'll get started now. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Noswaith croeso a webinar. We're doing ways of adding value to pork products, part 2 of our Maintaining Your Margin webinar. And Caroline Dawson is going to be presenting tonight, so I hope you'll find it very informative. And if you've got any questions, please put it in the Q&A and I'll put them to Caroline at the end. Right, thanks very much. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you, Lauren. So welcome everybody. So tonight we're going to be looking at ways of adding value to pork products. So this is a webinar I probably did for Mentor More Cymru about 18 months ago, something similar. So I know a lot of things have kind of changed in terms of the market, the challenges in regards to sort of the cost of feed, the cost of fuel, and access to markets, etc. So I'm hopeful that we can sort of try and keep tonight quite upbeat. We'll try and keep quite positive in terms of looking at those options. But yes, as Lauren said, if we can sort of save questions to the very end, if you want to drop them in chat. I think there is a section where it's a little bit interactive, so I might try and get you all sort of off the mute and sort of contributing, but we'll get there, and I'll sort of share that with you. So tonight, let me just, here we go. So sorry, I'm just getting into the swing of things. So a little bit about me. I'm up in North Wales, so Northeast Wales, originally from a family of butchers. I was working with Promar International, so they are a sort of agri-food consultancy business. I was their head of agri-food up until Christmas just gone. And they're involved with Genus PLC, which is part of the PIC with the pig genetics. So I've been working across the agri-food sector now for well over 10 years, across a whole range of agri-food clients, fisheries clients, and I've also done work with Welsh pork producers. I recently was with Mentor More when they went down to Devon, so I worked with them to set up a visit, and we looked at various things, including the UK's first mobile abattoir, which we should hopefully touch upon tonight. And it was the sort of focus really of added value and looking through sort of direct sales and some of the models that the farmers and small producers down in Devon were looking at. I've also had my own award-winning event catering business, so I am pretty familiar with sourcing local products, particularly local meat. So I link into a local farm shop just up the road from where I am, particularly around sort of food hygiene, business marketing, etc., etc. I do a lot of judging with the Guild of Fine Food, so the Great Taste Awards. So I've been doing that probably for the last 6 or 7 years. And then earlier this year, I was also involved with the Worshipful Company of Farmers and their Challenger for All Leadership course. So that's just a little bit about me. So what are we going to cover off then tonight? So we're going to have a look at sort of direct selling channels. We're going to be looking and having a chat, and probably where I get you involved with sort of telling a good story and looking at your USP. We're going to have a look at some target audiences, industry and consumer trends, maximising sort of carcass utilisation, production costs, rules and regulations, adding value through innovation and MPD, and some success stories and some case studies. So that's what we've kind of signed up for tonight. So we'll kind of jump around a little bit. All of those areas are covered off. A pre-warning, there are probably about 40 slides, so there's a lot of information, and in some areas we will kind of skim over it in a little less detail, but at any point, if I can kind of, answer any questions or follow up afterwards with some emails, etc., then more than happy to do so. So where are we at the industry at the moment? So looking at sort of current consumer and industry trends. So I did a little bit of research and sort of looking at sort of Kantar data, which is more kind of consumer retail focused, and some of the data from AHGB. And I sort of did a bit of digging and thought, right, what can I get a bit of a snapshot of where we're currently at as an industry? So COVID did sort of rekindle interest in local food systems. So buying local, supporting farm shops, that reconnection with local food, including red meat, did sort of get a bit of a rekindling. But off the back of that, and I think where we found ourselves now we've come out of lockdown, we've had the challenges with Ukraine, the impact of sort of feed prices, fuel prices, etc. There is a real sort of impact on the industry, particularly around sort of the increased cost of living and how people are spending their money. And there is a sort of a trend at the moment where consumers are downshifting in sort of retail purchases. So as well, in Wales, 90% of the meat that we consume in Wales is purchased through supermarkets, followed by butchers, and then that then is brought up by other retail outlets such as independents, direct sales, and online. Supermarkets have been the main route for Welsh meat products for more than 2 decades now. Online food sales, so these are the sort of latest figures I pulled from Kantar back in March. Was around 13%. And again, this figure is actually higher than it was pre-COVID. That figure did get to sort of almost 20% during COVID, but has obviously dropped back now. People have got a bit more accessibility and able to move around. Pork is still perceived as good value, so it's one of the lowest sort of average retail prices of all proteins. It's consumed and enjoyed by the whole family, both processed and unprocessed, inside and outside of the home. And there is, and as we all are aware, that there's an increased consumer interest around health and the industry reputational factors, so things like animal welfare. So again, this is just a very quick snapshot. So again, these figures from AHDB and more detailed reports, you can find them online if you go and have a look at some of their sort of data panels that they share. But just to sort of show you really that it's kind of remained pretty stable since 2019. 2022 is a forecast where the hatch figure is. So it just sort of shows really that retail has dropped back a little bit, but that in a sense is in line with where we are coming out the back of COVID. So again, there's a little bit of a shift in terms of eating out and sort of takeaways as well. But yeah, it just gives you a good idea of the volumes that are being shifted. So looking forward then, and again, doing a little bit of research and trying to work out, well, where is the market going? And I think if any of us could look in magic crystal balls and predict that, I think we'd all be very rich people. But I think with where we need to be looking is, playing on this sort of excellent value for money. Are there opportunities around alternative cuts, value cuts, quick recipes, pre-prepared? Innovation, so particularly in sort of retail, so tapping into the big seasonal events. And I've got the Jubilee coming up, for example, but big summer barbecues, Christmases, etc. Out of home process, so capitalising on, there's still a pretty healthy takeaway and delivery trends. And in food service, primary pork still needs a much bigger share, particularly in sort of dining menu spaces in restaurants and pubs, etc. There's still a way to go. So pork is definitely the lesser brother around beef, for example, in terms of the health benefits. So getting out some of those messages around B12 and iron and how we can communicate that. The really important one is how we kind of continue to maintain and build on consumer trust. So demonstrating our sort of farm values, so things like animal welfare, environmental impacts, all the sort of expertise we have as landowners, farmers, smallholders, etc. And how we share that with the consumers. So how can we keep telling that story, keep banging the drum? And then opportunities in the sort of eating out market. So pushing the reputational factors, so the health and sustainability, and how we sort of get those messages out regarding sort of back in Welsh, back in British produce. So we're going to have a look now at adding value and having a bit of a think about where do we start really if we wanted to sort of add value to any of the pork products that we currently have. So if we are a new business, this is what I would certainly get you to sort of get a bit of paper, and we start sort of having a bit of a mind map really about all of these sort of headings and topics and how we pull everything together. And perhaps if you're an existing business, I would certainly recommend maybe sort of revisiting some of these titles and thinking, how well are we doing? How well are we really doing? And being quite honest with ourselves. So in terms of considerations, the first would be looking at production of costs of your products that you wish to produce. Who are your customers and how are you going to supply them? understanding rules and regulations, understanding your processing and sales costs, looking at carcass balance and particularly looking at waste, your competition, so who is it locally and regionally, your routes to market both on and offline, marketing, USP and your story, and potentially sort of any other opportunities. So for me, these would be the sort of the top things that would be in my head if I was, as I say, about to sort of start looking at selling direct, or perhaps looking at sort of refreshing my current business model. So we're going to sort of start off, and I think what we're trying to do is cover most of those areas, sort of running through sort of some of the questions that we try and answer. But the first place we're going to have a quick look at is the carcass yield. So we're going to have a look at sort of killing out percentages. And again, some of you on this call may be aware of this, some of you may not be. But the killing out percentage, so an average killing out percentage for a pig is around 74%. So we're going to have our fictional 100 kilo, perfect 100 kilo live weight pig. So a carcass would be around 74 kilos. So making sure that we factor in, you know, all of the bits there, so head, trotters, fat, etc. And then we look at the usable meat. So that kind of drops down a bit further to 64% of the total live weight. And then if we push that down again further, prime cut, so of our sort of live weight pig would be around 48% or 48 kilos of our fictional pig. So then you can kind of start working out in a sense, so you know, using that sort of similar model, what we would be having to work with in terms of sort of saleable meat as our pig going forward. You can find lots of examples of carcass calculators online, and I'm sure sort of Lauren or Ellen can sort of point you in that direction, or myself, but having a look at, you know, what are the animals we're working with, and potentially what sort of yields of meat will we be obtaining. Then we just look in a little bit more detail, so how those kind of cuts are broken down. So again, in our sort of pig, how it kind of makes up the animal. So we've got around 20% of the pink is made up of the shoulder and neck. 25% is the sort of the loin, tenderloin and chump. We've got the belly and spare ribs around 21%, and sort of legs and shanks around 22%. So that's the kind of general makeup of sort of saleable bits that we have off our pig. And there as well, we've just kind of highlighted what those sort of cuts tend to be used for within the animal. And again, just to say as well, the slides will be shared with you at the end, so we can send that across. So market requirements, we won't stay too long on this because the focus of this presentation is very much on sort of direct sale. So in terms of commercial and sort of products going into the wider food chain, we're going to be looking much more at kind of what we can do from selling direct to the customer. But generally, pig carcasses are graded within sort of 45 minutes of slaughter, and estimated based on their sort of lean meat content. Going back to my young farmer days, I remember, you know, this sort of the EU grades and looking at conformation and carcass balance and sort of fat coverage, etc. So again, that's the sort of the lean meat percentage that a lot of the butchers that when they're sort of the grading sort of work to. And then yeah, we've got the sort of the finishing types as well. So generally sort of 3 market types that we work to within the pork industry. I just wanted to just share with you this. So while we're just talking about sort of cuts of meat and sort of carcasses, etc. So when, and I don't know if there's anybody on the call that went, but we went down to Devon probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. There was a group of us from Mentamore Cymru, and we went to look at various farms and sort of direct selling models. One of the interesting ones we came across was a mobile abattoir. It's the UK's first mobile abattoir based in Devon on a farm at MC Kelly, which do a lot of box sales. They run and own the Meat Box company online. And this was their mobile abattoir that had been made in Sicily, had been imported into the UK, and there had been an awful lot of barriers and red tape, etc. But they had just started using it for killing, So we went there, and it was literally only operational for the first few days, and they had a sort of a bigger lineup of animals coming through the week after we left. And it is just a shipping container. As you can see, it's got a bit of a pop top on the top, so quite similar to a sort of a camper van. And basically the animals sort of walk up the sides, they get killed at the top of the ramp, and they drop into the main unit. And in there, it's actually got sort of a de-hairing bath in there. It's got all of the capabilities of dealing with pigs, sheep, and beef cattle. So everything in there can be utilised. And then the products sort of get put through into a sort of adjacent fridge, really. So they tend to just do the slaughtering in there, and then there's a separate fridge unit, and then a separate cutting room. But yeah, lots of sort of interesting conversation, and particularly around the challenges in Wales with distance to abattoirs, particularly producers over in West Wales, Northwest Wales. They have a long way to go. Whether this could be a potential solution, whether it could link into some of the livestock auctions or other sort of agricultural, maybe colleges or food centres, etc. But a very interesting idea that I hope perhaps Welsh Government could explore or look into a little bit further. But I thought you'd be quite interested just to see some pictures of it, really. I don't know how well publicised or advertised it's been, but it was quite a nifty little piece of kit. So we're just going to have a quick look at sort of some production costs. So I've worked through with these costs, and we've tried to bring them up as good as we can up to the sort of May prices, so where we're currently at or where we're about to get to. And I do put a massive caveat in here that these are all approximate costs, and I appreciate costs for you will all sort of differ slightly. So you could be buying food by the sort of the 25 kilo sack, you could be buying it by the ton. So we've tried to kind of put average costs through to try and work out what a sort of a total sort of pig per cost is. And we've tried to focus as well on a smaller scale model of a sort of a Welsh pig producer. So I've had various conversations with different people, and we've tried to sort of average prices out, etc., etc. So it's really just to get you thinking about, when you are doing your costs, these are the sort of areas that we need to be looking at and considering. So the current market price, so looking at the last AHDB report, so this is from the 14th of May, the dead weight was in the region of 172.76 per kilo. And we look at it and you think, oh great, yeah, it's sort of 22p higher than it was a year ago, 19p above the sort of 5-year average, but it's simply still not enough. And with average cost of production estimated at around 230 a kilo, and it's probably likely to be higher now in terms of how things again have moved on so quickly. It's continually growing. So the input costs are rising: feed, fuel, medication, etc. But on the plus side, there is generally a premium. So that 172 is much more for the sort of commercial pigs. So there's generally more of a premium for the free range or traditional pigs, sold sort of directly or locally, and generally that is in the form of an extra pence per kilo price. So just looking at the costs, if you look at the table on the right hand side, we've kind of put together again some averages. So looking at sort of purchasing a weaner, we've put a price of £40 per pig in, and then we've kind of run it through in terms of feed conversion efficiency, sort of typical feed per pig, the cost per ton, and that is probably a little bit more elevated. I know some of you are sort of buying it for a little bit less than that, but others may be paying a bit more, and potentially where it could go in the next month or two. The feeding days, and then we're looking at sort of live weight gain and cost of feed per pig. So when we kind of factor all that in, plus all the sort of variable costs, so bedding, meds, etc., it's costing us in the region of £164 to pull a pig through from weaner up till sort of slaughter weight. So that's the sort of the figure we've been kind of working to and looking at. And again, the caveat being, putting your figures in and looking at your model to see how much that costs you. So in terms of pricing products now, so if we've got our pig, we need to think about how we cover our own production costs, how we still make a profit. And you've got that balance of how can I ask a price that my customers are still willing to pay. So we need to kind of work out all of our costs, add on a bit of a percentage margin. And in a sense, that is our sort of selling price to the customer. So there are many direct selling schemes in the UK, and getting an idea of price ranges is a good starting point. So having a look at, what other people are doing, what are they selling their products for? So once you have your own production costs, you can then sort of start calculating the price that you need to be charging for your meat to begin to make a profit. And from your research of sort of direct sales market prices, you can kind of then decide, is this worth it in terms of effort? Is it still achievable? And it is really, really important that you work out prices accurately, because you don't want to be sort of working at an operating loss immediately and trying to undermine your business model. And one thing that I do see quite often is you benchmark or people do benchmark prices according to their competitor and in a sense ignore their costs a little bit. So really trying to be accurate from the launch of your business and really being true to yourself in terms of that value. So we're going to look at a bit of a direct box sales model. So this is based on a kind of 5 kilo. So 5 kilo is a pretty standard meat box. And when you start looking online, most sort of online sort of pork producers, if they're selling directly to a consumer, it's generally that sort of 5 kilo size box. And that's simply because you look at the average kind of home freezer, the average size of a family, that's probably the quantity of meat they can probably deal with comfortably without it becoming a sort of a chest freezer job. So it just makes things a little bit easier. So that's probably the most sort of saleable size. There are 10 kilo options. There's half pig, whole pig. They are there in terms of different sort of sizes and options of retail. But for the purposes tonight, we're going to look at 5 kilo because that's the sort of the most sellable. So we're going to put our costs in. So at the top there, I've put the 164. So that is our production cost. That's how much it's taken us, how much it's cost us to get that pig to slaughter weight. Then we're going to sort of take it down the next level. So we're going to look at the slaughtering costs, the cutting and handling costs, packaging and transport. And again, those figures from probably when I did this similarly 18 months ago, they've all gone up. So yeah, slaughtering, the cost of sort of packaging, labelling, cost of transport, you're having to travel a long way. And actually that figure I feel is quite generous. I suspect that figure for some of you would be considerably higher. It could potentially be 50 quid, 100 quid even, depending on how far away you are from the abattoir and how many journeys, etc., and animals that you can get on a load. So if we were basing on a 50 kilos of meat, potentially we could get 10 boxes from a pig. So we look at then at our marketing, our legislation and sales costs. That's all the kind of the bits that we need to do to kind of market and sell a box. It could be online. It could be other bits of costs around sort of labelling, getting advice, etc., etc. The cost of packaging. So again, factoring that in. So again, a ballpark figure. It depends on, are you going for the top, finest kind of eco solutions, or are you going for something a bit more kind of run of the mill, lower end, less sustainable? And again, there's huge variations in terms of that packaging cost that you need to think about. So we have the box, the ice pack and sort of insulation. So again, a bit of a ballpark figure around £4. Couriers, so you're probably talking around £9 a box. And you decide, do you put that on? Do you take a hit on that? How do you sort of pass that on to your consumer, really? So again, these costs sort of start kind of mounting up. So all of a sudden, from the cost of the pig, the cost of the slaughter, packaging everything up, getting everything all ready to go, we've spent almost £400 on getting our pig to a point of we're ready to sell it. Then if we based on an average figure, so when you look across the board, and again, it all depends on your production system. So have you got, free range pigs that have, are they in the forest? Are they fed on organic diet? Is there something really unique about them that kind of warrants a much higher price? So some of the boxes you look at online could be retailing for £60–65, or likewise, is it more of a commercial pig and more of a commercial setup where they could be a little bit lower in the likes of sort of £40–45. So you've got all of that. That's quite a big variable of what sort of products are being sold for online currently. So based on that, we've kind of gone for around the £50 mark, and it kind of averages it out. So again, £50 if we sold 10 5-kilo boxes. And again, this is all in a really perfect world. If we sold 10 boxes, we would potentially take £500. So the gross margin per carcass would be around just over £100, plus our tax. So it'd leave us with a profit in the region of £80 per pig. If we were to just do a direct sell with very little added value, really. Here we are just selling meat boxes. And again, there's a couple of different scenarios. So it potentially could be £80 if that's what we're doing, which is currying it away from the farm, or it could be a bit higher. It could be around 170 if you are making customers travel to you and collect from the farm. Now, one thing I haven't included, both in the cost of rearing your pig and also in the cost of this, which is your sort of production and processing cost, is your own time. I haven't actually put any labour in here. So again, just thinking about, how many hours do you spend packing those boxes? How many hours have you spent, looking after those pigs? So really being quite realistic in a sense of how you factor in that time and factoring in those labour costs. So it does get quite tight in a sense of what that capability is in terms of not adding any value to that particular carcass. And then you can sort of start potentially looking at other things. So you've got the likes of charcuterie, air dried hams, sausages haven't been included here. So there's lots of other products potentially that you could add value to that would probably warrant a higher price per kilo in terms of retail. But again, there is more work and more sort of time and costs, etc., associated with that. So we spoke about some of the boxes, and I thought I'd just sort of share with you some of the concepts and ideas. So Piper's Farm, we went to see them down in Devon, and they sell a box. So again, it's around 4.5 kilos for £60. They put in a sort of additional delivery cost. But they do a sort of a nose to tail pork box, and what they do quite cleverly is they look at how they can actually get rid of some of the waste through their boxes. So they include things like pig skin, some of the offal, so liver, etc., kidney, etc., to sort of try and balance that carcass out. Piper's Farm is very high end, and they tend to target a sort of southeast London kind of market with their products. They sell sort of around £60, as I said, per box. They've got other variations. All of their products are sold frozen. So again, we'll touch on it a little bit further on through the presentation. But their model is all frozen. It's free range, very, very well marketed, cleverly marketed, with sustainability at the core of everything they do. And they are very, very good at telling that story and sharing that message. So that's a very, I would say, a higher end model. The Meat Box Co. So these are the guys who went to see that had the mobile abattoir. I would put these slightly below in terms of their products. So again, they were doing around 4.2 kilos plus a delivery cost, but they were selling for considerably less. They were selling for £45. Again, all sold frozen. But they were more in a sense of red tractor certified outdoor bred. they weren't necessarily promoting the sort of the full free range sort of trail that perhaps Pipers were, and being able to sort of warrant and charge that little bit more for their products. And then one a little bit more locally that Lauren's probably familiar with. So again, similar in size, but they were looking at this sort of medium pork hamper, which I think looking at this and kind of totting it up, I would say is over the 5 kilos we were talking about. And with this, they say sort of free nationwide delivery. And I suspect with that, and I think having a chat with Kyle, that part of that £68 cost factors in the delivery as well. So it's kind of how you market and how you pitch that to your customers. But again, you know, this is award-winning, it's high welfare, you know, it's out in the forest, it's free range. Again, there's an incredible story behind this. So again, it's where you're pitching and where your price points are depending on your production method. So a few top tips for meat boxes if you're thinking about that as the route for you, or if you currently are producing meat boxes, you know, have you thought about some of these points? So not being too prescriptive with the content, so maybe not overly promising to your customer to help with the carcass balance, sort of linking that into sort of selling the waste. So can you sell, you know, skin, trotters, etc., something novel, something exciting for your customers? Pet bones, postage, are you going to include it or not include it? So does it warrant potentially good value for customers? They sort of see, oh, you know, it's a free box, or is putting that postage charge something that you want to do? The 3 Ps, so telling your story, is so important. And I think from all of the case studies I've looked at, from going down to Devon and from being in the industry, I think the pigs, the people, the place, the 3 Ps, and I know there's even more Ps for marketing, but I think for our terms, we need to think about pigs, people, place. How do we tell that story? And is there a better job we can be doing? You know, are we kind of really clear to the customers in terms of what they're purchasing? Frozen does sell, and I think Piper's Farm has been a real sort of eye-opener on that one, and everything being very clean and thinking about people's living these days. You know, people don't want a box of pork in a sort of a soggy cardboard box anymore. They want minimal kind of intervention. They want everything kind of labeled. They want it, you know, vac packed in a way that is dead easy, that they can get it out in the morning, they can defrost it, something there super tasty for their tea at night. So thinking about how we can kind of pre-pack it, portion it, and sort of link that into recipe cards, cooking instructions, like clean cooking, etc. Collaborations with other local producers. So can you link up potentially to other suppliers? So, you know, sauces, condiments, ciders, fresh vegetables, anything there that you can kind of add a bit of extra value to your customers. And then sustainability. So that is really key about, you know, low food miles, carbon footprint, low impact. You know, what is that message and production method that you want to be sharing with your customers? So we spoke about telling a good story, and when we again were down in Devon, we met Peter Grieg, who is the founder, him and his wife, the founder of Piper's Farm Devon. And if you've not heard of them, I'd certainly sort of jot it down and have a little bit of a research, a bit of a Google, and have a look at what they're doing. So originally they were producing all of their own products, and they've gone a little bit bigger than that now. And what they tend to do is work with a sort of a select group of farmers that fit into their model, which is, you know, high welfare, sustainable, regenerative sort of practices, people that have got a good story, a high quality product, and they source their products and buy products at a higher sort of price per kilo directly from the farmer, opposed to sort of going to market and purchasing products. Vast experience within the industry, and yeah, quite leading really in a sense of what they do, and they're very clever in terms of their marketing and their sort of sales pitch really in their website. But yeah, Peter could talk for hours, and when we went there, we were with them for about 2 or 3 hours and really struggled to get away. but a guy who is so passionate about what he does, and how he stands for other farmers, and to get that message out there. For Peter, as I said before, they target a very high-end market. And I think there's always going to be those customers that have got that money to spend. And I know there's a little bit of doom and gloom in the start, in a sense of, you know, there is going to be people tightening their belts. There are sort of challenges, but they're always going to, as well, and keeping the sort of the glass sort of half full optimism. There are always still those people who will sort of want those sort of premium, higher quality cuts and products. So telling a good story links in quite nicely into sort of understanding the USP. So it's probably one of the biggest things that food producers do, is spend so much time trying to determine what their sort of unique selling point is, so the USP of products. And in a sense, you as pork producers need to do the same. And you may have already done it, or you may be thinking of doing it, but it's all about what differentiates you compared to what are those sort of differentiators really between you and your competitor. And it's really critical if you want to be successful in the marketplace. So things like the flavour, so how you describe, you know, the profiles of your product. So it could be what it's been fed on in terms of, you know, is it acorns? Is it, you know, brewery waste? You know, what is it that you are feeding your pigs on? The breed and the age of the animals. So looking at things like eating qualities, you know, the meat to fat ratio, tenderness, anything kind of a bit unusual in terms of rare or different breeds. The health benefits, and again, what are the health benefits? We spoke about B12 and iron, etc. You do need to be very careful when you're claiming health benefits. And I've just put in there about, you know, making sure that you've got evidence, that you can sort of research it, and sort of back it up in terms of that. Provenance, so how is it produced? Where is it produced? Is there sort of a story there that sort of links it in? And the locality, so is there a specific location where you rear or graze your animals? Is it forest grazed, etc.? Organic status, and again, you know, making sure that any of these claims are fully backed up with full certification. Your production methods, so grass-fed, grain-fed, herbal A's, etc., are the sort of assurance schemes that you potentially work to. And it's for a family story. So have you been pig producers for X generations, or, you know, are you a hobby farmist that, you know, gave a job up in the city? You know, sort of new to the industry. People love the story. They love that connection. So quite often people think, oh, you know, I've got one, you know, really good, strong, unique USP, but actually I would argue and say you need at least 2 or 3 to try and give your production, your method, your pigs a bit more depth, in a sense of that story. And it's really important that it is all about quality and consistency, and that's where your sort of sales growth will be based. So I think, yeah, this is where I just wanted you just to, if you want to put it in chat, or if you want to come off mute at all, I just want to hear just a couple of you guys, really. It's enough of me talking, and I'll quickly and grab another glass of water. But your sort of USP, so just shout it out, really. What is that makes you feel that you're different, perhaps, to your neighbour or another pig producer in Wales? So yeah, either put them in chat or come off mute and just shout them out, and I'm sure Lauren can just monitor that for me.
Oh, right. Has anyone got anything they'd like to say about their USP? I'd say for Forest Coal Pit Farm, ours is sort of rare breed, outdoor, high welfare is always good, and the fact that we moved from London, people always like that.
Yeah. Has anybody else got any other sort of stories or anything a bit different or unusual that they're doing?
So the chat is disabled, so you could always put it in a Q&A if you'd rather not turn your mic on. Thank you, Emma, for letting me know about that. And Barbara, maybe you could start us off, because I know you're always quite good at these things.
No? Okay. I thought you'd all sort of come out with, you know, I've got these lovely such and such a breed pig, and yeah, on the, okay. Okay, well, if you want to drop them in chat, oh, this, you can let them talk by to hover over their name. Is that why they can't speak? Is there a problem there with chat then? Is that what the problem is?
Well, we've just hidden the chat to avoid any unnecessary, but yes, Q&A might be best.
Okay.
Barbara sweetly said that she can't find the mic. Maybe I could ask.
So that could be why. Then it could be on presenter mode, and then they don't. Okay, that's fine. Sorry, guys. Then I suspect you have got lots and lots of wonderful USPs, and afraid we can't hear them. So I will take that back. So you're not being quiet. So yeah, unfortunately, then you've got to keep listening to me. So I just wanted to hear from you some of your sort of ideas and suggestions. So so not to worry, we'll carry on. So we'll move on now. We'll have a look at sort of marketing considerations. Oh, here we go. There are some here.
There are some coming in.
They're coming in now. So somebody here, we've got a farm shop in North Wales. We sell a variety of pedigree rare breed pigs. We've got beef, lamb and milk and various milk products. Everything we sell is produced by us. That's our USP. We have rare breed British lops. Brilliant. So that's good. Okay, so yeah, so there are a couple of USPs there. So yeah, it's what is that differentiator? What is it that makes you stand out from your competitor, from your neighbour, that can sort of grab people's attention, really? So so looking at market considerations, so just a few things to think about. So carrying out market research is really important. So be it charcuterie, be it a meat box, be it sausages, whatever it is that you're producing with your pork products, make sure that your products are suitable for your intended market. So gauging, you know, is there sort of a need and a space for your product in the market for you to make a profit? Who are your competitors? And I know, you know, I've got a business that I run, and yeah, it's always looking at competitor analysis. You know, what are they charging? You know, what is it that they're selling? And being brutally honest, you know, people always put a bit of a brave face on. So when you speak to people, you know, how well are they really doing is the question. I've kind of put really in capital letters there. People always like to kind of big up a little bit, you know, oh, we know we sold this, and oh, you know, we're doing really well. But you know, people don't like to say they're not doing well. So just being careful you don't get kind of sucked into a bit of a sort of a keeping up with the Joneses kind of situation, really. Creating a marketing and sales plan, so that's really important. So what are your targets? You know, is it per month? Is it per quarter? How are you realistically going to achieve them? So breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, making those sales really achievable. And then how much do you need to sell each month to sort of achieve your targets? Then, as we spoke before, about creating your brand. So what is your USP? And what are your customers that you've identified wanting from that product? And it's really important that we get your branding right. So you want to sort of look like you fit in, but then you also want to stand out at the same time. You know, what are successful pork brands doing? So again, like we spoke about Piper's, having a look at some of those competitors, some of the guys that do it well. Also have a look at the guys that perhaps don't do it so well, and think about, you know, where am I at? Go and get yourself, you know, some feedback, share it with friends, share it with family, share it a little bit wider, and just see where you sort of pitch yourself in terms of your brand. Quality of your products are incredibly important. So we want to make sure that quality freshness and consistency is always there. So particularly with meat, quality is paramount. You want a production system that is creating a consistently high, top quality product. And irrespective of what you're selling, freshness is important too. And it only takes one bad experience, and particularly with meat, it could mean there's sort of the difference where, you know, a customer won't have a repeat purchase, or it's poor word of mouth where, you know, they tell their neighbours, and particularly in this day and age, we've got no hiding at all behind social media. So, you know, there's potentially severe implications where people leave bad reviews, etc. So it's really, really important that if you are getting into direct sales, you're moving away from being that producer. So you're going to be, you know, instead of just selling a pig and off it goes in a trailer or through the auction, you are going to have that customer interface. So the good, the bad and the ugly, you have to be resilient and able to deal with that. So you've got to be really, really rigorous with everything you do, from production through to processing, to maintain that brand reputation, because it is only you are the brand. So rules and regulations. So again, some of you, it might be a little bit of teaching to suck eggs if you've got already into this industry. Others, if it's a little bit newer to you or something you're considering, there's a few sort of top tips, and we're going to look at just a few bits in terms of production and handling pork, etc., to think about. So it's obvious, really. I'm not going to overly state it, but we have a short shelf life with meat. So we've got to be really, really mindful about how we sort of manage that as stock, and going out of date, etc. So things like, you know, the frozen rather than fresh, looking at sort of vacuum packing or other packing technologies. I know they're looking at kind of more sustainable kind of vac pack, though at the moment they're not really reaching the shelf life we require. Looking at sort of use by dates and products, making sure that you've done relevant sort of shelf life testing, particularly on products such as, you know, sausages, charcuteries, air dried hams, which are a little bit more sensitive, really, particularly when you are sort of doing the air dry process, and you've got to get things like humidity and moisture and pH and different things correct. So it's making sure that you've got all the advice there and that is correct, and you've done your shelf life testing. And you can get support through the likes of sort of Food Innovation Wales. I know there's Coine, etc., etc. And I know with the business I used to run, particularly if you're new and coming into market, eich, they are always better to be your friend than your enemy. So get them on board from day one. You know, pick the phone up and say, look, this is what I want to do. How do I go about doing it? And get them involved from the start. And I know they can help with things like, you know, setting up your cutting plans or your workflow, or pulling your sort of HACCPs and your various kind of hygiene records and things together. And they can be incredibly helpful. So, you know, they're always going to be there. So please, you know, get on the right side from the start rather than get in touch 6 months down the line. So in terms of packaging, packaging is important for three things, really. Protecting the integrity of the product, making it sort of easy and safe to access. And you also want to make sure it sort of does justice to your foodstuffs sort of aesthetically. So I always have an example which springs to mind, that there's always a sort of a charcuterie platter that I always see in, I think it's like Gloucester Services or T-Bay. And the way that it kind of gets put on the shelf means that all of the sort of products kind of like slide down the packet and get kind of ruffled up at the bottom. And it's one of my bugbears, because I think, why is this product still there? Why haven't they changed the packaging on that? And it's not that aesthetically pleasing. It always seems to have a yellow sticker on it. And I always think, is it because of the packet and how it kind of ruffles up, really? So making sure that, you know, it really does your product justice. Again, the days of these sort of soggy cardboard boxes and picking things up from butcher shops and trying to sort of drop them out off the back of the boot of the car, I think they're over. You know, people do want a bit more sort of care and attention, and things that are labelled correctly and easy to use. Labelling, making sure, you know, everything is pre-packed. It's got all the mandatory information. So there is legislation in terms of what what information needs to go on and associate with meat. There's loads of information on the Food Standards Agency website. So all the current and most up-to-date labelling requirements. Also speaking with trading standards and your sort of EHO to get that signed off. Your label always must have your name on it, your address, be very clear, very precise. It's got to have all of the customer contact information and everything then associated with that particular product. So it's got to be very legible, not obscured in any way. And you've got to think about your sort of packaging as well. So can it deal with moisture? Can it deal with high and low temperatures? You know, if you're handwriting labels, is it indelible ink that's not going to run? Being quite mindful of any claims. So if you're going to say that it is an organic status or it's got sort of some special health property, have you got the certification to go with that? And again, making sure that you've got the appropriate insurances in place. So product liability, public liability, employers liability are a minimum really for all kind of farmers markets or selling online. And again, it does vary depending on the type of products that you're selling. So looking at some target audiences and some sales channels, what I've done here is looked at, I think we've got 6 or 7 different routes to market, and we're just going to quickly go through some of the pros and cons really around them. So routes to market, so we're going to look at sort of direct sales farm gate. So this is basically a customer coming to you to buy the products directly from the farm gate, and that can be in a fresh or frozen, and it could be a pre-packed or a boxed kind of format. So the good thing about it is there's no distribution. You've got a direct connection with that end consumer, and you're going to obtain the full sales value. The cons, so access to consumers, you know, the customer must get to you, and particularly if you are in a sort of a challenging or more rural location away from the sort of main populations. It's fully reliant on your own self-promotion, so it could be through social media or word of mouth. And you're going to need a few sort of skill sets in a sense of handling the meat, storing the meat, hygiene, etc., etc. Direct sales, so again, we're going to look at sort of the markets and festivals. So this would be going to something like a food festival or a sort of a farmer's market. Generally, it's pre-packed. If you go into a market, you're not going to be sort of selling open packs of raw meat. So yeah, you'll get good face-to-face engagement with your customer, an opportunity to publicize, get feedback from your products. And again, you'll get the full sales value. But you've got to then factor in things like there's a lot of time to get to the market. So the selling, in a sense, is the easy bit. It's, you know, getting yourself there, your van, your fridge. Some of these food festivals are really expensive. So they can cost a lot of money to attend. So you could have slightly lower margins in a sense. You've got to pay for that pitch. And it can be sort of highly labour intensive, particularly if you're doing 2 or 3 days back to back, where you've got to be on your stand sort of 8 hours a day and still do all your jobs at home as well. Plus, you've got the threat of weather that potentially, you know, great British summer, cancelling things and washing things out. Direct sales online, and this is one that I think certainly off the back of COVID has grown, and I think people are a lot more confident now in terms of buying products online. I know I certainly buy more online in terms of food and drink products. I actually bought out of interest from Pipers when I went to see them. I did buy a hamper, not something I regularly do. I'll put a caveat in there, but just out of curiosity, really, just to see the quality of the products. I've always been a kind of person that would buy fresh meat directly from the local butchers or the local farm shop. So getting those products in frozen and seeing how they're defrosted, I was actually really quite impressed. So yeah, I think that's much more of a norm now, and I think people are happy and confident that, I think with couriers as well, with how that's improved in deliveries, that things do remain frozen. So there's a lot less overheads. You can control what you produce and sell. So I know with the Forest Coal Pit guys, you know, you'll only send them out on a certain day of the week. So, you know, orders only go out on a Wednesday, for example. You can put however many boxes you've got for sale online. So if you only got 10 to sell that month, once you sold your 10, and if they're frozen, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit in terms of getting them out the door super quickly. But you've got to be blooming good online. You know, you need an e-commerce website. You need, you know, really good sort of storytelling. Social media, I always say to people, and I know with the business I run, you literally have to be putting something out pretty much every day to try and keep that messaging going. So you want reliable couriers, you want tried and tested packaging methods. And there are sort of high costs associated with websites and e-commerce. They have come down a lot, but if you want a good one that's functional, that works, that you can update easily, you know, looking at how you do that. So potentially the startup costs with it can be quite high, just to sort of get yourself in that good position. Routes to market. So there's then the potential of selling and hooking up with a local butcher or farm shop. So putting products more locally through an outlet. So in a sense, you're not going to be doing the selling. You know, there's going to be a higher footfall if they're established in maybe towns, or you know, it's established farm shop that has that good footfall through. So it will kind of reduce your head or overcost heads. If you're sort of selling maybe a whole carcass or a half carcass, and they could be doing some of that butchery for you. The cons being, you know, there's going to be other meat suppliers there. So there's other red meat. So it could be beef or lamb. It could be other pork producers that are selling products in there. And products sometimes as well may have to sell themselves. So they haven't got you standing there saying how fantastic it is. You're relying on the shop assistant, the butcher, to do that for you. And then ultimately that's potentially sort of lower margins. You're not going to get that full overhead, or that full cost, sorry, that they're going to want to obviously take their margin, their percentage. And then I won't go into too much detail, but supermarkets, there are opportunities with sort of regional supermarkets, and there are some of the bigger, you know, possibly sort of bigger producers that could consider this. But again, it's that capability to deal in volume. You're certainly going to get sort of squeezed on price on this. Products will have to sell themselves. So I'm just thinking about branding. It's really important when you're in this market. You've got a set sort of specifications that you've got to fill. You've got to be able to manage and keep that continuity of supply. So that potentially could be an issue. So it can be challenging. And then food service, so this is selling into like pubs and restaurants. And what was quite interesting was it was a message that came up probably 2 or 3 times when we were down in Devon, actually, and speaking to the likes of Pipers and MC Kelly and a couple of the other, the free range farmer, a couple of those other guys, where they had some real challenges with food service. And food service as a sector at the moment, and particularly with they've got the VAT rise that's just come back, so they're now pulling sort of paying back the full 20% where that was completely slashed during COVID. They've got huge staffing problems. There's the whole thing about sort of staycations, and then there's all this sort of cost of living. Food service at the moment is really, really under the cloche in terms of costs. And I was doing some work with an ice cream producer a few weeks ago, and they had a whole list of pubs and restaurants that hadn't paid from back in October. So it's being really, really careful, particularly in that food service sector, that you've got a good, strong relationship with your pub and restaurant. They are paying their invoices to you. You know, you've got payment terms, and that's being turned around quite quickly. Because I say from Devon, there was a few of the guys that actually sort of said, look, our model now is not to deal with pubs and restaurants. So it's just being a bit mindful. They can also be quite selective in terms of their cuts. So they potentially could cause a carcass imbalance for you. And they can be a little bit seasonal and in demand. But they can be really good if it's a premium product, if they can share your farm story. There are still opportunities there. But it is just a bit of a word of warning that, yeah, it's a bit of a challenging sector at the moment, and particularly where cash flow is really important for you guys too, that you don't want to be getting yourself in a situation where you're struggling too. So the power of online, it's just natural, really. It's where everything is at the moment, and it doesn't matter what product you are selling, what story you're telling, you have to be there in that online marketplace. So yeah, Facebook and Instagram is massive at the moment. Pictures say 1,000 words. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, see what your competitors doing. I know for me, my business particularly is Instagram. It just, everything sort of flies through there, and that's where I get my most engagement. Having a simple yet an effective e-commerce website, and again, linking that and supporting that with social media. Reach out sort of directly to your customers. Feedback and testimonials are incredibly powerful. People buy on recommendation. So do a really good job about shouting about what you do and how you get some feedback and circulate that. Special offers and seasonal variations, so people do like a good offer, but making sure that offer works for you. I don't like giving stuff away, but yeah, you've got to think about how that offer does work, how you're not going to be shortcut, or could that offer work in a sense of you've got a surplus of a product, or you've got a carcass imbalance where it could potentially be doing you a favour. Sharing your story, so going back to that, the 3 Ps, so people, pigs, place, and awards and celebrating success. So again, the likes of the Great Taste Awards. I know there's a new Welsh Food and Drink Awards. It was a few weeks ago. Getting some of those awards, and a lot of them are free or very cheap to enter, and they can really help propel and accelerate your business and potentially open doors if it is an award-winning product. So finally, we're just going to sort of wrap up. So what are the success factors? So we want a robust business and a robust sort of financial structure. We need to get support from the early days, so getting some solid business advice, working with your eich, the Food Standards Agency, etc., etc. Doing an assessment of what skills are currently available at home, so family, friends, producers groups. Understanding your production costs, so what is it costing you to get that carcass ready to sell. The understanding of your sales, marketing, packaging, delivery costs, etc. Customer research, and having those customers kind of lined up and all ready to go and to purchase. Well-designed promotional resources, so websites, social media, linking it all together under a sort of a strong brand and linking that into USP. Quality sort of products produced to your customers' requirements, so understanding what they want. A robust and tested supply chain. Adaptable attitudes to business, so if things don't work, what is your plan B? Do you have an exit strategy? And that was one really good piece of advice that a business guy gave to me is, you grow a business, you build a business, but if things do go wrong, or circumstances change, what is plan B? And having that always kind of there ready to go. And sustainable practices, so sort of profit, people, animals, and the environment. So it is a real sort of key area to be working in now in terms of sustainability. So what are you doing as a business to take that forward? Just a few words of caution. So cost of production, don't let it run away. Monitor costs regularly. Don't bury your head in the sand. It's really important that you keep on top of this. Access to slaughtering facilities. So I appreciate this is challenging in some parts of Wales. The cost of fuel and time to get there and to do that. So incomplete and poor costings, carcass sort of balance, low margin potential, understanding who your customers are and how you're going to access them, logistical problems, so delivery, processing, production, specialist training, upskilling. So butchery is a skill. You've got to be good at it. People don't want sort of untidy cuts of meat, so making sure you've got the skill set or somebody that you can work with to help you do that. Staffing resource, are you paying yourself or your family members a wage? Who have you got to help you, and try not to run yourself into the ground ragged with it? And we see it's disagreements between family members. So, you know, there's one thing rearing your pigs, but then when you've got to go to a farmer's market and a festival and pulling it all together, and how does that work? So just being aware that, you know, it can put pressures and stresses on the family. So just to finalise the final slide, so pork has a natural fit. So many of the sort of current food trends, so things like family-friendly recipes, slow cooking, comfort food, etc. We can look at things like the gourmet touches, so MPD, so your sausages, charcuterie, air-dried hams, etc. There are lots of different options, and there's some great examples of people, you know, doing some really cool and interesting things across Wales. I don't know if you saw Ruth from Cwm Farm. She was on Country File on Sunday with what they do. But again, very niche what she went out, and very specialist sort of skill sets that she's developed there. You've got meat for barbecuing, fire cooking and picnic food. Look at sort of adding veg or other products to sort of balance that out and promote healthiness and completeness. Nose to tail consumption. So there is a bit of a sort of a trend and interest there, and trying to avoid food waste. And then the opportunities for farmers to explore direct-to-consumer routes. So the farm produce sort of box deliveries, the fresh or frozen, trying to collaborate with other local businesses to expand in your delivery office, so things like platters, meal kits, etc. And then opportunities to promote local credentials, so your farm to fork traceability, linking into emerging technology. So trying to be kind of on the front foot and be reactive opposed to being proactive rather than reactive, really being on that front foot in terms of what's new, what's next. So trying to get those skill sets, jumping on sort of talks, forums, joining sort of producer groups, etc., to try and be more efficient and effective in these sort of farming and rearing methods. But yeah, be a groundbreaker rather than a sort of a price taker, which is quite important. So yeah, that's it. I think that's kind of where we're at. So yeah, I know it's tough at the moment, and I feel that it's a bit of a wave that we're all going to have to ride as an industry. Unfortunately, a lot of the industries do go in these kind of cycles, and it is challenging. But I think those that can kind of, you know, hunker down and dig deep will kind of get out the other side and will potentially thrive. But it's just trying to keep positive, keep motivated, keep going, and trying to find that little niche, that little thing that's unique to you that potentially could make that difference for your business. So just some on and offline resources, and I'm sure Lauren and Ellen can help. But yeah, Mentamore, Coine, HDB, Port Blasis, environmental health, food innovation, etc. BPA, there's loads of things there in terms of online forums and groups, etc. So thank you. I apologise. I think I've just gone over a little bit on time. So yeah, a very, very sort of high level sort of whistle stop tour in terms of that added value. But yeah, any questions, or if there's anything I can help with, or Ellen or Lauren can help with, then please do shout. So thank you.
Hey, diolch yn fawr, Caroline. That was great. Thank you very much, Caroline. I think that was really informative, and I hope everyone got a lot out of it. That was really great. And then if anyone wants to see any more of that stuff, if you want to see it again or share it with your family or friends, it will be up on YouTube probably middle of next week, if you'd like to go over any of that again. And then we'll just go to Q&A now. So Mark, thank you for your question, Mark. So Caroline, when looking at your competitors, are you price matching or undercutting?
Oh, I don't like undercutting at all. So in again, with what I do with my business, people pop up all the time and they will undercut me. And I think my advice is really, really believe in you and your products, and really value them for what they are worth. So if you've got a really good quality product, a really good story, and you're really, really believing in in what you're sort of producing, then I would really stick to your prices. I think when you start getting in the undercutting game, it's kind of a race to the bottom, really. So I would certainly say try and, you know, be realistic with what it is costing you to produce that product, and really stick tight in terms of what you feel that value is. And it's surprising, customers will still come and pay for that quality. I still see it, and yeah, being really true to yourself is where to go. So price matching, okay, but undercutting, I think you're on a race to the bottom. So just be a little bit wary on that one.
Lovely, thank you. And then Jane, thank you for your comment, Jane. So Jane is saying that there are some fantastic butchery courses being run at the Food Technology Centre, subsidised but very professional and helpful.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
as much as you know, mental model, yeah, valuable training.
No, very good. I probably did one of their first butchery courses going back, I don't know, about 2009, I think. I remember going and getting my first half a pig, and yeah, fantastic experience. And the guys there have got a real wealth of knowledge to get you up and running if that's something that you're not too familiar with, or just starting to dip your toe in the water. So definitely take that up. Yeah, really good.
Lovely. And then while I just wait in case there's any more questions, I would ask all the participants tonight if you wouldn't mind just helping me out by completing the feedback form. It just helps to show government that we are doing things to help people. So that would be a big help to me. And let me just see if there's any more questions.
Is there something in chat or no?
Yes, wonderful. So Ellen, thank you. Diolch yn fawr, Ellen, who has been doing all the backroom work on this webinar tonight, getting it set up. So Ellen has just posted the forms in chat. So if you could, that would be a big help to us, if you could fill out that feedback form. And I think that does seem to be it for questions. Yeah, diolch yn fawr again. Caroline, thank you so much. I think that's really informative and just perfect, really timely for these tricky times for pig producers. So thank you. Oh, that's my cat. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this all. It's been really interesting and informative.
No, thank you, Lauren. And yeah, I'd just like to wish everybody on the webinar all the very best with whichever sort of plans or routes they go down. So I know it's tricky at the moment, so keep doing what you're doing and keep sticking in there, and I'm sure crossing fingers and toes that things will pick up. Yeah.
All right, diolch yn fawr, nos da everyone, and anything you need, get in contact. All right, bye.